Can you trust your CGM? Should you trust your CGM? And again, before you're thinking, of course I can, hear me out. So this was last week. Headline: 7 deaths, hundreds of injuries linked to faulty Abbott glucose monitors, especially the Freestyle Libre 3. So 3 million were recalled that had an issue that basically said that there were incorrect blood sugar readings, and that ended up leading, as the headline said, to 7 people dying, which is not good. And then hundreds of people having situations where their blood sugar ended up super low or super high, and it could get super dangerous. And so that's Libre. So you're thinking, okay, that doesn't affect me. I'm on a Dexcom. Dexcoms are great. They're the gold standard in a lot of people's eyes, except for then you see a similar situation where Dexcom's had significant recalls and mandatory updates for G7 this year for issues with the software, the app not alerting people when they have low blood sugars, all sorts of sensor failed alerts that are happening. I've had my share of issues. I mean, my goodness, it's probably documented on here plenty, but personally, I had a run of, I think it was 11 or 12 consecutive sensors that did not last the full 10 days.
Welcome to the Your Diabetes Insider podcast, where we take all of the mysteries of blood sugar control, focusing on nutrition, exercise, and any of the other 40 plus factors that may impact your blood sugar. If you don't know me, my name is Ben Zeal. I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, strength and conditioning coach, and I've lived myself with type 1 diabetes for over 20 years. And I am here to share everything that I have learned in both my personal and professional experience so you can live that incredible diabetes life. So get ready and let's dive right into today's episode.
What is going on? Welcome to this episode of the Your Diabetes Insider podcast. And today we got a fun topic. I know we got the holidays going on, but breaking out of the holiday theme for a second, I feel like it's really important to discuss the CGMs, continuous glucose monitors, what's been going on with them lately, what some of the headlines mean, and what these things mean for you as a person living with diabetes who may or may not be dependent on these devices to help with your management of your blood sugars. And again, type 1, type 2, doesn't matter. The ultimate situation here is knowing, hey, can I trust these things? Can I not? And you might be thinking, Ben, of course I can trust my CGM. I'm wearing a Dexcom or I'm wearing a Libre and they're super accurate and they're super helpful. But there's definitely been some things coming up in the news over the past few months that are a little less than stellar in the land of CGMs, quite frankly, as my warm-up literally just completed as we speak. Look at that, right on cue. So shout out to that. Let's go. Good day. But anyways, here's the situation. So I guess we could really start with this conversation. Can you trust your CGM? Should you trust your CGM? And again, before you're thinking, of course I can, hear me out. So this was last week. Headline: 7 deaths, hundreds of injuries linked to faulty Abbott glucose monitors, especially the Freestyle Libre 3. So 3 million were recalled that had an issue that basically said that there were incorrect blood sugar readings, and that ended up leading, as the headline said, to 7 people dying, which is not good. And then hundreds of people having situations where their blood sugar ended up super low or super high, and it could get super dangerous. And so that's Libre. So you're thinking, okay, that doesn't affect me. I'm on a Dexcom. Dexcoms are great. They're the gold standard in a lot of people's eyes, except for then you see a similar situation where Dexcom's had significant recalls and mandatory updates for G7 this year for issues with the software, the app not alerting people when they have low blood sugars, all sorts of sensor failed alerts that are happening. I've had my share of issues. I mean, my goodness, it's probably documented on here plenty, but personally, I had a run of, I think it was 11 or 12 consecutive sensors that did not last the full 10 days. So we're talking day 6, there it goes. It just fails. It stops reading. It says wait 3 hours or whatever, and then it just stops reading, or it comes back and it's not reading remotely accurate, which I think is honestly more dangerous, because if you think about it, you think your blood sugars, probably can give a great example of this in a second, but you think your blood sugar is one thing and it's really the complete opposite. So prime example of this, and why I'm grateful for the little buddy that is down here chilling, because there was a time, and I've told stories of similar veins before, but there was a time not too long ago, I figure, oh, my blood sugar is totally fine. I'm 146. Everything's great. He starts pawing me. He knows how to paw when I'm over 180 and when I'm under 70. So I'm thinking, okay, this is odd. He doesn't just walk up to me, sniff, and start pawing if my blood sugar is in the 140s. So I test and I'm over 250. That's an 100-point difference. And that is not the only time that has happened. That is not an exception to the rule. In fact, it happens quite more often than I care to admit. And again, I'm not saying this is exclusive to just G7. I'm personally running a G7. This happened with me on G6, maybe not to the same magnitude, but I'm also not the only one. We have lots of patients that will come through the practice and they will say, hey, my Dexcom this week, the readings are funky. Every time I would finger stick, it was off by 25, 30, or 40 points. And again, to put a really good baseline here, when you finger stick versus what your CGM says, they are going to be a little bit different most of the time. And you might wonder why, because remember, the CGM's reading your interstitial fluid. The finger stick is your actual blood at that exact moment. So they are going to be a little different. Interstitial fluid has a 10 to 15 minute delay. So again, understood, when you look at a blood sugar on your Dexcom, if it says you're 122, you were probably 122 15 minutes ago. So it may not be the same right here in this second. But on the flip side, with the example where Roscoe P was gratefully able to paw me and tell me my blood sugar was high when I didn't think I was, in a situation like that, if your blood sugar graph is flat, if your blood sugar, you have the line that's just across and you're just chilling and you're, 140 or whatever it is, it should not be moving very quickly when you do a finger stick. If you've been chilling at roughly the same number for the last hour, your CGM 10, 15 points off, maybe, if that. I've had times where it's exactly the same. I've had times where it's off by a couple points. That's more along the lines of what you would expect. But on the flip side, when it's off by 25, 30, 35 points, that can completely influence all of your decision making. Think about it, right? You have a blood sugar that's, again, 170 versus the blood sugar that you think is 130. 130, you're going to, let's say you're eating dinner, you're going to dial up, take for your food, and you're fine, assuming you're on insulin. If you're 170, you're going to have to take a legitimate correction to bring your blood sugar down. That's a bunch of insulin you may have missed out on. You're actually starting at a higher starting point than you realize, which means it's a lot easier for your blood sugar to climb higher and then potentially get stuck. So this can be a major issue. And again, imagine you're on a pump with an algorithm, right? Right now I'm running the loop with the Omnipod Dash. Some people are running Omnipod 5 with the Dexcom. Some people are running the Medtronic, which just got the Abbott, integration, which is awesome. Some people are running Tandem. You have this information from a CGM that is feeding to a pump that is then making decisions on your dosing based on information that may or may not actually be accurate. And that's pretty scary. Again, I don't know about you, but I find that pretty scary. And so again, this is not here to sound the alarm and don't trust your CGM. It's the worst thing. Oh my God. No, don't take this out of context. By any means, do not take this out of context. What I'm just trying to bring up here is, A, you may have not heard of this information, especially that about the Libre, because it's relatively new, but both products, those are, I would argue, the two biggest players in the CGM field right now, have had their share of issues in 2025. Hopefully that doesn't continue into 2026, but I want you to be aware that these devices, as good as they are, as helpful as the technology is, and for me being so grateful as someone who had type 1 diabetes as a child, went 14 years without a CGM and then started wearing one, they're life-changing. But at the same time, they have their faults, they have their issues, and their inaccuracy can be scary if you are not prepared. And so a couple ways to make sure that you are staying on top of this and staying on point, because again, like I said, that headline from it was NPR that said this, but the 7 deaths and hundreds of injuries linked to faulty Abbott glucose monitors, we don't want that to be a situation that you are in, especially if you are watching this or listening to this. We don't want you in that situation where you are someone who is deeply impacted in a scary situation, where your CGM said you were 80 and you were really 35, which, hi, that's happened to me as well. And that's terrifying because you think you're fine, you don't feel right, you test with blood and you're like, holy cow. But notice the common theme of every instance that I've mentioned from my own life where I say, hey, Roscoe P alerted me. Hey, I felt funky and I tested. Always test. When in doubt, test with a finger stick. And it's annoying, right? You have the whole point of wearing these CGMs is to not have to finger stick. But on the flip side, the last thing that you need is to have a number that is reading way off base, because that's just what the technology chose to do. And you now are running off of a false sense of security or false sense of concern because of what a technology is doing for you that may not be accurate. Second piece, I would advise, again, I say this, I'm not necessarily your provider. You may be listening to this and I am, but if I'm not, obviously take with a grain of salt. But I would consider, and I do this personally, making sure that you calibrate your new CGM at least once in the first 24 hours and at least once in the second 24 hours. So the first 48 hours, you're doing it twice, preferably once per day. For whatever reason, it seems like the first few readings are just atrocious. And I don't know about you as well, but when I look at the G7 graph and it shows up with a new graph, it is choppy. It is going all over the place. You zoom out to the 24-hour view and it literally looks like you let a kid loose with a bunch of crayons or something. And it's just like crunching up and down, doesn't know what it wants to do, where it wants to go, what it's trying to do, any of these things. And until it is calibrated and it's been on for a couple days, that tends to happen. So I would suggest calibrating at least a couple times to make sure that it is going to read more accurately. Again, is it going to be perfect? No. But at least you will help set yourself up for success in a situation where you hopefully have more accurate readings. And then concurrent to that as well, there are people that do this. I've done it before. I don't do it all the time. But when your sensor is going to expire, there's a process that is called soaking the sensor. Again, terminology, I didn't make it up. It's not my choice, but ultimately what happens with these people is they will say, hey, I'm running my current sensor. I will insert the next sensor. So let's say your sensor is on your left arm. You put a new one on your right arm. You keep the left arm one, so it's still running. And when that one expires, you have the one on your right arm already on your body, and it's probably been on your body for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. You turn it on, you activate it. And then at that point, you've had a sensor that has had time to acclimate to your body. So hopefully that choppiness, that craziness that I'm talking about removing from calibration, hopefully that is not impacting you at all. But if it is, at least it's to a lesser degree. Again, I've done it a few times. I didn't notice anything personally that was crazy groundbreaking, but I have patients that swear by it and do it every single time and they love it. And it's the most amazing thing to them ever. Could also just be my body's weird. I don't know, right? Maybe I have this too small of a sample size, more likely the situation here. But that is something that I would also consider doing because the goal here, again, you want to be able to trust your technology, but second, you want to set yourself up for the highest probability that you are able to succeed with the technology reading correctly. And those are 3 things that you can do, right? One of them, if you don't trust it, test every single time. I don't care the situation. Second, the calibrations, it's going to be annoying. But again, you should have a backup meter regardless. I don't care if you are the most CGM heavy person. Oh, I wear it all the time. I wear it 100% of the time. I do not care. I do not care. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just being honest because let's say you are in a situation that your CGM just craps the bed. You are inaccurate. Something's going on. It falls off. Something happens and you do not have a CGM. You do not have a way to test your blood sugar. And with this, I remember vividly, it's probably 2-ish years ago, I had a patient, love the patient to death, amazing human being, did not have a backup meter, had diabetes at that point for a decade, no backup meter. I don't know how that was possible. I do not know how whatever care team that he had prior to working with us let him leave without a meter and a way to test a blood sugar separately. I do not know how that happened. Thankfully, got it squared away. He was able to get a meter. It was great. They've got stuff at, Walmart. They've got stuff at Walgreens, wherever you got to go. There are possibilities for anything. But what I will also tell you with this is you have to have that backup. It is not even like it would be really nice. No, it is you've got a CGM, you've got to have a backup. You've absolutely got to have a backup. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you want to be someone that's optimally caring for your diabetes, because you have to have the ability to point of care, point of contact, boom, right there. You're done. You're good. You know what your number is. You're set. And then it might be a question of then you get the conspiratorial side where it's what if the meter's wrong? And you have no way of knowing. But more often than not, the meter's correct. The CGM may or may not be correct, but at least you can verify the two. And also, if you have weird symptoms at any point, that is why you have the ability to finger stick. Because the worst feeling ever is, your CGM says, you're 77, you're fine, you're 86, you're fine, you're flat, everything's great, and you test and you're 52. That is one of the most annoying feelings, especially when you're about to go to sleep. And you're like, my body won't let me sleep. This is really odd. And you test and you're like, that explains everything. And it's just absolutely brutal. And it's terrible. And I don't recommend it for anybody. But what I will tell you is, in my mind, it is imperative to have this. So again, I bring up these headlines not to scare you, but so you, A, know what's going on in the world of diabetes. I think that's extremely important. But number 2, or B, or whatever method of counting we're using here, if that was A, B, I want to make sure you have actionable things you can do to make sure you are safe, you are protected, and your blood sugars are in the best spot possible. So trust the CGM, but asterisk next to it, have your backup with you. Have your backup options to know what your blood sugar is at any given moment, because sometimes it's not going to be accurate. And yes, that may influence dosing decisions from the pump. And that's also why you still have final say. That is why you have the ability, if you need to, again, with your care team, in conjunction with them to go to manual mode and make adjustments as you need. So again, technology is great. It's not perfect. Hopefully it's getting there, right? The hope is today is the worst that the technology will be, and it only gets better from here. But that's ultimately, I hope that you got something from this. I hope you're loving the podcast. If you are, would mean the world to me if you dropped an amazing review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you are listening. 5-star review would be incredible. And with this too, if you are someone, you want better blood sugars, you want to feel your best, you want people that get it, that understand it, that walk the walk and talk the talk, my team and I are here to help support you. We're all dietitians. We all live with diabetes. We all have exercise backgrounds. On top being dietitians who live with the diabetes ourselves. And we would be more than happy and honored to be a part of your journey. So if that's you, holler at us. New Instagram handle at Your Diabetes Insider, which is incredible. Just keep everything consistent, keep everything really easy, which is awesome. But with that, I will catch you in the next episode.
Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.